Yeah, good to have you here. And I was getting a little bit into UCLA before I had you on. This was an excellent day for them today. Signing a top 20 class and garnering as many recruits as they were able to get with Chip Kelly only on the job for a couple months.
Yeah, Chip Kelly closed well. They had a really strong last 10 days. If you go back to the early signing period in December, they only signed 8 players, but it was a quality 8 players. But he closed really well in the last handful of days. He got Elijah Wade, a very athletic defensive end from Arbor View High School in Las Vegas, 6'5", 240, was high school teammates with Greg Rogers, who is going to be a sophomore on the defensive line for UCLA. He also got Tyler Manoa, which was a very, very late get. Manoa was thought to be going to Utah, and Kelly had an in-home visit with him literally last Friday, and Manoa committed to UCLA on Saturday and signed this afternoon. And he's from St. Francis in Mountain View, 6'5", 260. So what you're going to have with UCLA's defensive front, it's going to be very young. There won't be any seniors in the front seven. What you're likely to see is new defensive coordinator Jerry Azzanero switch to a 3-4 flex defense or a hybrid defense. What I mean by that is there are going to be times when the outside linebacker comes up, puts his hand in the dirt, and is on the line. So what you need in order to be able to accommodate that are versatile athletes, not necessarily guys who are stuck at defensive tackle or at defensive end, but guys who can be mobile. And UCLA is going to have that. You add that to Jalen Phillips, who was a terrific defensive end his freshman year when he was healthy, and you add that to Greg Rogers, and this is going to be freakishly athletic defensive front seven. So he closed very well. He also got a big surprise today with Rashad Williams from Memphis, Tennessee. Williams is a defensive back, 6'4", 183, so tall and lanky, which if you're a UCLA fan, you know you've been living a lot of years with guys who are 5'10 and 5'11 in the defensive backfield. Now you get a guy who's 6'4 and athletic. And the thing with Williams is almost all of his recruiting had been in the SEC. UCLA was really the only school on his real radar, Colorado maybe a little, but really UCLA outside of the SEC. He went to his signing day ceremony today with everybody expecting him to sign with Vanderbilt. That was 90% the expectation. And he gets up there and puts on the UCLA hat and pretty much stunned everybody. So, again, really strong closing for Chip Kelly. One more that they got on the offensive side this afternoon is Michael Ezike from Colony High School down in San Diego. He's a 4-star wide receiver / tight end, 6'5", 220. He graded out on all the recruiting sites as a tight end, but he's got good speed for a tight end. So I think what you're going to see Kelly do in more of his high-speed offense is use him in a variety of positions. You'll see him go out wide with that height, which is going to make him a difficult matchup for defensive backs. And then when you bring him inside, his speed is going to make it a little difficult for linebackers to cover. So it creates some good matchup problems. Of course, the key to the class has always been and was always the quarterback. Dorian Thompson-Robinson, who everybody has grown to call DTR because it's just a lot easier. He made people a little nervous today. I got to tell you, he committed back in April to Jim Mora. And when they made the coaching change, he tweeted he is very, very active in social media. And he spent a great part of the summer in social media, on Twitter, on his Instagram pages, recruiting other high school players to join him at UCLA. And then UCLA makes the coaching change, and within hours of UCLA hiring Chip Kelly, DTR said he was all in. And the coaching staff, the new offensive coaches, made it a point of going to visit him in Vegas literally upon being hired. I think if you look at, he's a dual threat. He was the number 2 or 3 dual threat quarterback in the country. He throws well on the run, good mobility, good arm. a little bit in the Brett Hundley mold, if you're a UCLA fan, with a little bit better outside mobility than what Hundley had. If Chip Kelly could have come in without having any quarterback commits and looked at available quarterbacks, this is the guy he would have picked, and yet he was already there on the table for him. It made people a little nervous because by 1:30, 2 o'clock, he hadn't signed his letter. And you could see the UCLA sites, they were a little disturbed that he didn't sign in December. Reality says he wanted to make sure that that Josh Rosen was really leaving before he actually signed. Then you get through the entire morning and early afternoon on the West Coast, and he still hadn't signed. And you could see the nervousness in the UCLA social media pages. It was nothing more than a matter of his high school, Bishop Gorman, was not having their ceremony for all their players until 2 in the afternoon West Coast time. Nonetheless, when you've built your entire class around this kid, they got a little nervous. So he closed well. There's the one thing that is missing, and it's the 300-pound gorilla in the room, and that is the offensive line. They missed out quite a bit today, and there's some question marks. Jim Mora, as we've talked about and I've talked about with Mark in the past, Jim Mora did not recruit the offensive line well for the last 4 years, so there's not a lot there. And Chip did get a couple of 3-star offensive linemen. He got Bakara Beckett from Pacific Palisades, and he got John Gaines from Milwaukee, and that's all well and good. But this morning he had a chance at Jared Patterson, a 4-star offensive lineman from Mission Viejo down in Orange County, California, who originally had been UCLA and Michigan. And then a couple of weeks ago, he took a trip to South Bend, and it became Notre Dame and UCLA. I think the telltale sign was he scheduled his announcement for 7 a.m. this morning Pacific Coast time under the guise of wanting to do it before classes started. Sure, except no coincidence. It was right in that early morning time frame for South Bend, Indiana, and the folks at Notre Dame. So that was a bit of a giveaway. And then as you and I sit here tonight, there is a huge, huge question mark with regards to commit Chris Murray. Chris Murray is a 4-star offensive lineman out of Mater Dei, which is also down in Orange County. For those who know the area, they know that that is generally a pipeline to USC. But UCLA has had some inroads in the last couple of years. The challenge with Murray is this. He committed during the U.S. Army All-American Bowl, had one of the TV ceremonies, and chose UCLA over Notre Dame and over Stanford and USC. The challenge is this. He did not sign today. He did not show up at Mater Dei ceremony for their players. It is pretty well known for those of us who followed the team and the program and the recruiting. His mom wants him to go to Stanford. And he's not of age to sign his own letter. He needs parental signature. So the story is that his mom does not want to sign a UCLA letter. She wants to sign a Stanford letter. So he, even though he'd been committed, strongly committed for the past 5 weeks, he was a no-show today. And the only thing that we could get out of anybody in our reporting was his high school coach saying that the family needs some time to discuss what's going on. But that's going to be tough if UCLA can't get him, because it means that they went light on the offensive line again.
Certainly light on the offensive line. I did find it interesting. I heard that today about Chris Murray. I did certainly find that interesting, and he was listed as a hard commit since early January, of course, when he did commit. And stating his intentions to join UCLA, and that definitely throws a wrench into things when the parents want him to go one place, and you need their signature, and you can't make that decision that you actually want to make, which seems like all along he's really been set on going to UCLA.
He has been, and he never wavered. Once he made his decision on TV at the Army All-American game, he never wavered. And for UCLA fans who are old enough to remember, this is deja vu all over again, because some 13, 14 years ago, there was a highly valued linebacker out of La Quinta High School near Palm Springs named Michael Craven, who had brought it down to Stanford and UCLA, ironically enough, the same two schools. And when he got up to make his announcement, he didn't make any announcement. He had to go sit down because he couldn't do it. He desperately wanted UCLA, and he wound up making no announcement that day. And then later on, just sent a notice that he was choosing Stanford, and it was clear that it was the exact same thing, actually. His mom wouldn't sign the letter for UCLA. And, look, I mean, parents get involved, and I get it. Everybody saw what happened with that kid who committed to Florida today and his mom walking out of the ceremony. How weird was that? But so it's a little bit of deja vu for UCLA fans. It's unfortunate. I'm a believer, having had a daughter who was recruited to play college athletics, that, if they can justify their decision, you got to let them live it, because they're the ones going to practice for 3 hours a day, and they're the ones going to the weight room. They're the ones sitting in on the classes. And as long as they can legitimately justify where they want to go, then I think it's tough to deny them that. I mean, in the terms of Craven, 13, 14 years ago, his heart was never in football the same way. He barely saw the field in 4 years at Stanford. And sure, he got a great degree, and that's fine, but you can get those in lots of places and still be able to play and fulfill your desire. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. I would venture to guess we're probably about 48 to 72 hours away from knowing what's going to happen with Chris Murray.
Well, that'll certainly be something that we'll definitely be monitoring here in the coming day or two, because, like you mentioned, I mean, the offensive line is a major area of need for UCLA, and without that commitment, it is going to be the elephant in the room, as you alluded to. But the other elephant in the room, and it's no longer an elephant in the room because, DTR did commit this afternoon, but with Josh Rosen moving on to the NFL, Dorian Thompson-Robinson seems like he's going to step in right away and be the starting quarterback. Is that, from an outsider's perspective, is that too big of a jump, or is he going to really seriously push for early playing time? Because he's certainly a talented kid.
Yeah, you know what? You bring up a good point about pushing for early playing time. I think one of the things that Chip Kelly said tonight, just a short time ago, about this recruiting class was, he said, don't worry so much about the stars. If you're a UCLA fan, I would remind you that Chip Kelly took an Oregon team to the national championship game based mostly on 3- and 4-star players. So Chip Kelly's, issue is we got who we needed in positions we needed who were going to fit our system. All well and good. With regards to DTR, I would say this. UCLA has a quarterback in-house right now, Devon Monster, who's going to be a redshirt sophomore, who can run Kelly's system. He does sprint out well. He's got a decent enough arm to go downfield. But I'm going to tell you that DTR is going to push him from day one. I don't think there's any question about it. And I don't think it's too much to ask of him, because one of the things that Kelly kept reiterating tonight was he was impressed with the maturity of DTR. He was impressed with the maturity of a lot of these kids, and some he named specifically. But with regards to DTR specifically, he said that he was impressed with his maturity and knowing, what he wanted to do. I mean, look, this was a kid who wasn't even a starter until his senior year at Bishop Gorman in Vegas, yet had scholarship offers as a backup junior because people could see what kind of talent was there, even though he was playing in mop-up duty behind Tate Martell, who's at Ohio State now. So I don't think it's too much to ask. And I think, look, Josh Rosen played as a true freshman. Brett Hundley played as a redshirt freshman, but he probably could have played as a true freshman. Certainly had the skills to do it. So I don't think it's too much to ask. And I think that from an offensive standpoint, knowing the kind of offense that Chip Kelly likes to run, and, hey, look, he had a 3-star quarterback that he recruited on his way out the door at Oregon, a guy named Marcus Mariota, who, happened to do, not too badly in his 1 year playing for Kelly before Chip left for the NFL. I think DTR is very viable. I'm not saying he's going to be the starter, but if I had to put odds on it right now, having watched him play and having watched UCLA all season, I got to say right now, today, he's 65-35 the starter when the season starts.
And the one thing I'll say, and I think this is a good year to have a freshman quarterback come in, is because he's not the only one who's learning the system for the first time.
Right.
The entire team is learning the offense for the first time under Chip Kelly. I mean, this is going to be a new system for them. So I think he's got a good a chance as any to become the starting quarterback at UCLA, at least from the outsider's perspective, like you mentioned.
Yeah, and he's learning it fresh, as opposed to some of the players who have to unlearn what they knew before and start over. This is all a blank slate for him. And so again, I think if Kelly could have looked at the quarterbacks available today, and clearly there was a lot of talent out there, he would have said, "This is the guy who fits my system to a T."
There's one guy you brought up earlier, Michael Ezike, and 6'5", 220, and you mentioned the fact that he's listed as a tight end, but plays like a wide receiver. And there's another guy who has had pretty solid success on the national stage in recent years with Clemson, and Deon Cain, who is the exact same type of player. And when I watch Ezike on film, and I was able to see some of his film on ESPNU today, they had the National Signing Day special. Yeah. They brought him up. He reminds me so much of Deon Cain in that he was listed as a tight end. He plays like a wide receiver, and I think that's where he's going to fit in this Chip Kelly system.
Yeah, you know what? I think that's a really good comparison. I think you hit it just right. I think that, look, when you're playing high school football, regardless of how competitive of a level you're playing at, when you're playing at Colony High School in San Diego and you're that big, you're one of the biggest guys on the field. And you're the tight end. You're not a 5'11", 6-foot receiver, who's playing that division high school. So that's part of the reason for putting him at tight end, because clearly in high school he was a matchup nightmare for pretty much any team, and had a great deal of success down there. So you put him up at the next level, and he's got the versatility because he does have the hands to play receiver. He does have the size and the blocking ability to play tight end. And again, as you pointed out, talking about a Chip Kelly type of offense, you need versatility. You need guys who can do multiple things. Just like we had talked about with the defense and what they're going to need from the athleticism. It's really no different for the receivers and the tight ends on the offensive side of the ball. You need guys who can do multiple things. And Ezike is that. I mean, I've seen tons and tons of film of this kid, and he's got terrific speed for a kid who's 6'5", 220. You could easily see him putting on another 5 pounds of muscle. He's got the frame to do it without losing any significant speed, and he creates a matchup problem no matter where you put him on the offense.
So with this recruiting class, obviously a pretty successful class coming in at the top 20 and the first one under Chip Kelly, and the expectations I feel like for UCLA heading into next season, despite losing Josh Rosen, are sky high just given the state of the Pac-12 South. USC, of course, losing Sam Darnold. They have JT Daniels, a really talented freshman who reclassified from the 2019 class into the class of 2018. He's going to have a chance to push for early playing time there at USC. Arizona State, of course, now has Herm Edwards. Who knows how that's going to go? That could go any number of directions. Arizona brings in Kevin Sumlin, of course, and then you're sitting here with UCLA. Just based off the standings from last season, UCLA, of course, with a 6 and 7 year. Utah, I feel like Utah's destined for a bounce back. It was such an up and down season for them. Right. My point is the Pac-12 South is wide open. I think UCLA, despite not having a starting quarterback that they've had for every year in the last 3 years, having Josh Rosen, he's been the one steady hand. You don't have him anymore, but I'm not sure it really matters. I think UCLA has a good chance as any to win the Pac-12 South.
Couple things you bring up that I think are really good points. One, I'm not sure Josh Rosen would have really fit well in Chip Kelly's offense. I think Kelly would have made adjustments because obviously if you've got someone with Josh Rosen's ability, you do what you need to do to get him on the field and give him a chance to succeed. So Kelly would have adjusted. But if Kelly's going to go in with, again, using the term a blank slate, with what he wants to do, Rosen wouldn't have been a terrific fit anyway. And DTR is. I think with regards to the Pac-12 South, Arizona, it's hard to see where their recruiting is right now. I mean, someone came in very late. They fired Rich Rod in December, and so someone comes into the game very late, and it hampered their recruiting. Herm Edwards at Arizona State today said one of the most mystifying things I've heard a coach say, that he was just now getting used to what National Signing Day was all about, because he's used to the pros where you sign them, you recruit them. In college, they recruit you. Well, yeah,
Duh.
welcome to National Signing Day, Coach. Wow, and it's that's the way, and that's what happens when you hire a guy who, one, hasn't been in coaching in a long time, but two, hasn't been on a college sidelines in forever. And it's funny because if you have a chance to go to Twitter later, Khalil Tate, the quarterback at Arizona, was running smack at Herm Edwards tonight, saying, "Yeah, coach, welcome to college football." So that's how it works, huh? So, you got the schools in the desert that I think are going to have a bumpy ride. Colorado, I don't really see where they gain. Utah, I think, is going to be interesting because I do think they're due for a bounce back year, but they did not have a particularly good day today. They lost some players that they thought they had lined up and couldn't close on. And so I think that hurt them. Tyler Manoa being one of them. He was destined for Utah and winds up at UCLA. SC had a blockbuster day. SC moved from probably the 14th or 15th school in the rankings for recruiting to an easy top 10. They had an absolute blockbuster day. I think what you're going to see is, with regards to the Pac-12 South, I agree with you. It's open. I think UCLA has got as good a chance to recruit or to succeed as any. I think what you're going to see is USC with a bunch of really talented guys who are going to take some time to get used to Helton's coaching. There are a lot of SC fans even who were not happy when Clay Helton got a contract extension the other day. They're still doubters at USC, and you're going to see them against a UCLA team that didn't have all the five-star guys, but has the coaching and the system down, with the athleticism. So I look, UCLA's got a tough schedule in the sense that they got to go to Oklahoma week 2 with presumably, possibly a true freshman quarterback at the helm. And clearly that's nothing easy whatsoever. But like you said, they've got SC at home. They've got some of the tougher games at home. It is doable. It's doable to be competitive, which is all UCLA fans have wanted the last few years. Not necessarily guaranteeing the Pac-12 South, but be competitive for a chance at the Pac-12 South title. Compete for the title every year. Get it every couple of years. Get to the Pac-12 championship game every couple of years and compete for the Rose Bowl. The UCLA fans, when they were tired of Mora, were not asking for the world. They were asking to be competitive on a yearly basis and on a week-in, week-out basis. If this team competes with Stanford, which they haven't done in 9 years, if they compete with SC, the fan base is going to be fine. They'll deal with whatever growing pains come with a young team.
I'll tell you what, Tony, no matter what happens, take solace in the fact that you're in a much better situation at UCLA, at least in my opinion, than Arizona State. I think UCLA fans can feel a lot better about the state of their program than Arizona State can, at least at this juncture.
Yeah, there's some pain going on in Tempe tonight.
Yeah, they're having a CEO and a general manager of their football program with something nobody's ever heard of. Just go out and recruit and hire a bunch of really good assistants, and then Herm Edwards can just be Herm Edwards and ease himself back in. What they're doing right now is not going to work, so I'm interested to see how that kind of unfolds moving forward.
Yeah, both schools in the desert could be in for a very long season.
Absolutely. Well, Tony, thanks so much for joining us again, and please let our listeners and viewers tonight let us know where to find your work.
Yeah, we got last word on college football. We pumped out about 27, 28 recruiting stories today, starting at about 4:30 a.m. West Coast time, as there were kids starting to sign with Florida and Miami. So all of that is still up on the site. You can go to lastwordoncollegefootball.com. You can go to, you can find us on Twitter also, Last Word on CFB. You can find me personally if you want to harass me at Tony Bruin on Twitter. And there's a lot of good stuff from a lot of our writers. As now that this part of it is over, we'll start to head into some overviews of some teams as you get ready for spring camps as well.
Well, thanks so much for joining us, Tony. We'll definitely have to check that out, and appreciate you being on tonight.
All right, Michael, have a good night.
Yeah, you too. Thanks.